Throughout his 2 tours in the Army, Ryan Rigdon was the soldier called upon to defuse IEDs and bombs. And IEDs are just kind of really high-tech explosions. And so obviously this job is extremely tedious and very, very stressful. And so when Ryan returned home to his family, he had a lot of hard times kind of acclimating to the normal, relaxed civilian life. So he developed a lot of panic attacks. He had panic attacks multiple times a day. He developed a fear of going into crowds. And eventually he would go into these semi-conscious states where he would literally search his entire house for the IED he was convinced was hiding somewhere. His struggles got so bad that one night he loaded a gun and was ready to take his own life. What's sad is this is only one story of a soldier who has had difficulty readjusting to civilian life, and it was told by Jonathan Miles in a 2016 article for a hunting magazine. But Ryan's story is similar to thousands of other soldiers. It is very common for soldiers to struggle and feel uncomfortable after returning home. And even though you and I might not see the firsthand struggles and difficulties of soldiers coming home, it's important for us to address this topic and to really care about our soldiers' health, because they're the ones that are literally going across the world and fighting to protect our freedoms and our rights. Through extensive research, I have learned just how devastating the effects of wartime can be, and I'm here to talk to you all today about PTSD and returning veterans, the solution that can address this issue, and what this would physically look like once the solution was implemented. Cornell Law School defines acts of war as an armed conflict, whether or not war has been declared. But I think we can all agree that war is much more devastating and terrifying than that simple definition. In a study conducted by the National Center for PTSD in 2003, they asked soldiers from Iraq and Afghanistan if they had ever been put in certain stressors or situations. And then the situations that they asked about are at the very top of the chart. As you can see, the soldiers that answered yes to being in certain stressors are extremely high. This chart also shows us the vast difference between a war zone and a home zone, because here at home, 95% of us aren't seeing dead bodies. 93% of us aren't being shot at. So it's very understandable why soldiers come home and have a difficult time readjusting to their life. For some soldiers, actually a lot of them, the stressors really are rooted deep down in them and in their minds, even if it's subconsciously. And they develop something called PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, which in 2017 the Mayo Clinic defined as a mental health condition that's triggered by a terrifying event, either by experiencing it or witnessing it. And this is what Ryan Rigdon had when he came home from the war. A professor in the Department of Psychiatry at Yale University, Dr. John Crystal, also says that currently 196,000 soldiers suffer from PTSD. The American Psychological Association also gives us a list of symptoms in a 2016 research paper they released, saying that symptoms of PTSD include flashbacks, nightmares, severe anxiety, etc. But what's really devastating is that when a soldier has PTSD, they don't just experience one of these symptoms. They experience multiple of these symptoms at the same time. And all of these symptoms are extremely debilitating. If you're having nightmares, you can't really sleep. If you're too fixated on one event, you're not really going to go out and get a job. And so it really disrupts their day-to-day life and their family life. Another effect of PTSD is that it can also lead to suicide. And in her article, To Live is an Act of Courage, Jennifer Michael Hecht in 2013 tells us that 22 veterans commit suicide a day. That's almost one veteran every hour. In addition, in a 2017 article, PBS told us that 1,000 veterans attempt to commit suicide each month. These numbers are so high and make it so evident that our veterans are really struggling and that they really need help. So how can we meet this need? Well, I propose mandatory reintegration counseling. So this is a program that would take 2 to 3 weeks long, and it would occur right after a soldier returns from their deployment before they go home to their families at a base. And it would include counseling sessions, psychological tests, and reintegration classes. The counseling sessions would really let them unpack what they've just seen and what they've done and really process their feelings and their emotions surrounding it. Psychological tests would let them know if they're maybe even already suffering from PTSD or if they're predisposed to PTSD. And reintegration classes would tell them the signs of PTSD. It would teach them how to approach their family members and their little kids who might not remember them because they've been gone for so long. It would teach them how to go out and get jobs, and when they start feeling and acting a certain way, the steps that they need to take to make sure their PTSD and their depression doesn't escalate. The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs in 2016 released a research paper on reintegration programs, and they said that it could help prevent family breakdowns, social withdrawals and isolation, problems with employment, and alcohol and drug abuse, all surrounding soldiers. So a mandatory reintegration program would really prepare soldiers for what to expect when they go home and would really help that transition be a lot easier. It wouldn't take away all of their problems, but it would definitely ease their struggles. So what effect would this reintegration counseling actually have, and what would it really physically look like? Well, let's take one soldier but put him in two different scenarios. One scenario, he goes and he receives reintegration counseling before returning home. He's able to unpack what he's done, he knows how to approach his family, he knows what kind of job to look for, so he's a lot more successful when he returns home. But if the same soldier doesn't go through this reintegration counseling, all his emotions and everything he's seen and he's done is still bottled up inside of him. He hasn't talked about it. He doesn't know if what he's feeling is okay. He doesn't know if that makes him weak, which was a big stigma in the military world. And that can kind of bottle up and lead to the symptoms of PTSD we addressed earlier. It's also very important that when soldiers return home, their therapy continues. It can't just stop at the reintegration counseling. And in a New York Times article in 2017, they addressed one particular form of therapy, which was art therapy. And these are two real-life examples of soldiers who went through the art therapy. And basically they're given a blank mask and they're said, okay, paint what you're feeling, paint how you feel yourself. And so, I mean, it's really devastating to look at the soldier on the right and see that half of his face is literally a skeleton. And so, even though some people might say that reintegration counseling is costly or that soldiers just want to get home right away, it is so worth it if their struggles and their PTSD can be eased somehow. At the very beginning of the speech, I told you about a guy named Ryan, and luckily, even though he literally was seconds away from committing suicide, he didn't. He thought of his wife and his children and decided that he didn't want them to find him, dead. And so he sought professional help. He went into treatment and therapy, and he's now on his way to getting his PTSD and his depression under control. And this just shows that counseling for veterans and soldiers does in fact work. So throughout my speech, I hope you've seen that there is a big need for soldiers and there is a big void in our military system, but it can be met through reintegration counseling. So how do we make this possible? How do we get reintegration counseling into an actual program? Well, I would encourage you all to write to your local politicians, write to lawmakers, tell them what you want to see on our ballots. Also, maybe you can become a politician and write this law yourself or get it passed in Congress yourself. Soldiers literally risk everything. They risk their basic existence to protect us, and it's time we start protecting them when they come home.